so I'm doing the figuring on how to make the little plunger that's going to actuate these gears. You know, the rack, if you will. I need to make these opposed because they're supposed to point the same way, and this one's on the other side of the blade. But to get the measurement, I had to do it this way. And then between those, there's a 1/4 inch gap, which will account for this push rod. Yeah, that's the right way to say it. That will be inside the handle and connected to the spring. Of course, I'll have to shave it down later. But the top section has to be the right width to stick a piece of the rack on either side of the blade so that it can push or actuate the corresponding side to the guard. So figuring all that out and trying to figure out where the holes should go, and you know, in regards to the spacing between the holes on center and all that stuff, I started laying things out, and what I found out was, by chance, it's that exact hole pattern on the small holes. So my gut feeling to go with those, it was correct. So now I'm going to build a test plate. This is way thicker than 1/4 inch. This is pretty close to 3/8. And I left it thick because, well, one, I don't have a mill, as you saw in the earlier video. This part here, the fuller die didn't work out, so I had to grind it all out. My press isn't strong enough to push that big of a shape into hot steel. And this I did with a die grinder. I drilled holes to the depth. There's the remnant to one that went a little deep, and then I die ground out with a burr tool between all the holes. That hole pattern matching out to this is kind of a real, I just can't get over that. But now that I've got this figured out, I'm going to drill those 2 holes, and then I can take some pins here and test this out to see how far up and down this needs to go. After looking at someone's rendition of the regular one from the show, where it just had a thumb switch that you can push and actuate the guard like this, I just got a crazy idea. What this changes, if this idea works out, is I no longer have to extend this rod all the way back and have a spring and a trigger to do this, because we're only moving this far. That's really cool. Now, before I was going to put a spring and a trigger so that you could cock it by pulling the pommel out and pushing a button, and this would shoot forward and spring those out. But this is much simpler. Now I can design a piece in the transition here that will slide. I can make the pommel one piece with the handle, or make it screw in the back, and then it's static. It's no moving parts. The only moving part would be right here. So, cool breakthrough. I'm glad I did a little test plate before I got too far with this. That's going to be so fun. And it moves really fast. Like I said, I was very impressed with it. Because, yeah, that's as far in as it would ever need to go, and just that quick, it's way past out. The square line is out. So barely, maybe a 1/4 inch of movement. So much thought goes into these things. I've decided to keep the spacing of the original holes, but move them down, more like the original design was, and then move those 2 front ones in so that I can actually get some bite on the plate that goes in there instead of having them so far out to the edge. All of this was figured out by doing really ridiculous, crazy math. Well, it is for me anyway, trying to figure out how everything lines up, and that 1/4 inch of movement to make the things move it back and forth. This left enough room, but it also was too far up to reach. And luckily this is long enough that it's just right there, and it'll be nice and comfortable to make the guard work. So doing all of that, I came up with an entire comprehensive plan of how I'm going to finish this piece out. This is going to take a long time. And I'm not going to go over it now because it may change as we go. But the first thing I have to do is, because this has a distal taper, I have to take a 2x4 and put a bunch of sheetrock screws in there so that I can make it level. And that way I can drill these holes square. Otherwise they're going to be, you know, off to an angle and it won't function correctly. And while I have it level, I'm going to take and sand this flat. So I got to remove a bunch of material back here to make it the same depth as this. And that way everything will function and look right. And that's probably as far as I'm going to get in this video, if I even get that far. I mean, you're probably just going to see me drill the holes and start sanding it, because it's going to be very meticulous and kind of a real pain to do. Because I don't have a mill, it's what I have to do. But then there's going to be some shim plates and some other things, and then all of this will come to fruition on the next few videos. There we are, nice and level. I'll get a brush here or something. Get this stuff out of the way. There's our, pardon the sniffles, there's our hole pattern. The 3 mounting holes, the 2 pivot holes, and the slot. Now I'm going to try to get that kind of leveled out, thinned out back here like I said. Well, it's better than it was, but I've got to take some measurements now with a caliper or something to make sure, because that track system, I'm going to put shims in, but still I want it to, I don't want to have any goofy lines on the outside of what would be the like gearbox for it, you know, where there's a 1/16 of an inch gap because it didn't fit. So I think that does it for this video. Next time next time you tune in, I'll have it cleaned up and flattened, and I'll be cutting the slot in there.